Okay. Jim Martashev Guler, Takaran Lum Jack Erased, Falshes Jack Karen. Sorry for the Gumalish Gale Asan delay, technical
Trinona
difficulties.
Gamal.
Yeah,
No problem.
Trinona Mai, I'll get
Yeah.
Karen, I'll get Ella.
Trinona Mai is right.
Yes. Okay, look, we're going to have a chat tonight. We touched on a few of these things last week when we were talking to Paul. We finished up on marriage and things like that. And you were saying about why it's gone the way it's gone, and I threw in a few things like it's to do with society's not prioritizing it and all that. So we'll talk about the issue. I call this Trojan horses tonight, which is all about what I would use the phrase equality is a real Trojan horse. Somebody once said up in the north there, they said equality is the Trojan horse by which will break their backs, kind of thing. So, so we'll talk a bit about that, and we've had announcements this week about our COVID next couple of weeks. I'm sure you've heard the North's going into lockdown again, and Louth might be joining. So
yes, I heard that.
Yeah, that's a couple of topics. Look, I'll kick it off with the old thing about the red herrings around feminism. Mark Collett and others have done very good videos about how feminism has basically just created the death knell and the destruction of the institute of marriage, and has created and delivered unhappy women, angry, unhappy women, and single men. Basically, people are leading single lives now, so that's as a result of feminism. So well done, feminism, on that one. So the whole idea of equality, it's not something that should be brought into a marriage. But they're not equal. They're equally valid, men and women, but they're not equal, as in, otherwise what would be the attraction? What's your take on that, Karen?
Well, I know men are different. Like, men have certain skills and women have certain skills to the partnership. But I mean, I know women have gained a lot, socially and culturally, the last stage, especially the 70s, because women had to give up their jobs when they got married, and that's something that wouldn't happen today. But still, I mean, in a partnership, like, in a marriage, it's hard work. It's a lifelong commitment, and men have, they've always been the breadwinners up until probably in the last, say, 20 odd years, with women have played a role where they worked as well, but that's driven by economics too, because women, they've gone to college in their 20s, they've travelled probably more than our mothers and our grandmothers did, so their expectations have changed, which is fine. But when you're in a relationship, there's a lot of give and take, there's compromise, there's a sacrifice to a certain degree. I want kids, that kind of thing. And
do you think that society could be prioritizing and making it look like it's a better career option type of thing for young females to try and get married or whatever? Would that be a good idea for society more? I mean, do you not think that they're nearly making it with females? They'd nearly be laughed at if they said, "Oh, I'm going to try and get married early," and make
it definitely isn't really attractive as much. Yes, a lot of socially, you wouldn't have lived with your partner in the 80s or the 70s. Now it's like a given. You live with them before you get married. So it's not really, getting married is not really socially attractive as it once was. The pressure is not on.
Yeah. Do you think that's a bad thing then? Do you think that's a bad thing or a good thing?
It's not great, but economically, it's not good to get married either, because even trying to get like, tax wise, it is to a certain degree, but like financially, having the house, the children, and having to cope with that, you're forced to go to work. So even if you didn't want to go to work, both partners have to go to work. And that in itself, there's no incentive to have the family financially.
I know, but they're going to get married. They're going to have children anyway outside of marriage. So but
it's very difficult financially to even have a look to the future. So even if you had the child before you got married, which most couples would, it's very, very difficult to save to get married, or to even to actually be a family.
Do you think it's actually easier then for women to just be living single lives with children then? Yeah.
Yes, it definitely is. In a sense, well, with children,
well, that's very sad.
Sorry? It is very sad, because
I mean, they obviously clearly then that they're not doing enough to incentivize. Obviously, marriage is just basically a complete no. There's no point to it then. Absolutely.
Well, to a certain degree, it's not as attractive, and the pressure is off for the daughter or the son to find a man to get married or woman to get married. Whereas before it would have been like, that's the first thing you ask. You get married, you have the children, you settle down, that kind of thing. But now it's like college, which is great. There's nothing wrong with going to college and broadening your horizons, going traveling, getting the job, getting something under your belt, getting education under your belt. It's much more easier for women now to go to college. A lot more people going to college now. Whereas in my day, there wasn't as much, or maybe in my parents' day, definitely wasn't as much. Education wasn't a big thing. It was getting to work, and the education was put on the back burner. You had to go to work
Right.
at
Well,
14 or 15.
do you think that education is spoiling marriage, or do you think that they can have education and still prioritize a way of getting married now? I mean, does it have to be one or the other, or can they not do both?
It can't be both, but I think the policy of the government doesn't encourage people to expand beyond having one or two children, and that's probably the problem, because it's financially difficult to have more than two children in this family or in this country.
Right.
To have three children or four children is definitely unusual. Yeah. It's very unusual to have any more than two or three children in this country.
They definitely would need to. The government then should step in and maybe make it a little bit more attractive for people to get married.
From a tax point of view.
Tax breaks and whatever, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
And regarding the crash, I mean, I'm going back to when I was a kid. No such thing as going to crash when I was growing up. I mean, the same for you. Whereas now, most children are in crashes and they don't see their parents. So it doesn't really help if one of the parents went, what? Sorry?
Speak for yourself instead. Go on.
What was I going to say? It's part of the family life now. Whereas in the 70s and the 80s, it was very unusual to have children going to crashes. It was straight into school, and that was it. And then you left school 13 years later.
Right, so basically, the government, and would you blame then left-wing policies of the government that are just not showing any interest in prioritizing the institute of marriage? I mean, they're prioritizing divorce, making it very easy to get divorced. They're making it very easy to have abortions. They're just not. They need to move things away from that far left point of view. Would that be an idea you would hold with, or?
Well, I mean, I'm not again. I mean, divorce only came in there in the 90s or so, but it's you have to have an outlet if things go wrong, but you can't make it too easy. It was 4 years, now it's 2 years.
I mean, you have to have grounds for a divorce, in my opinion.
I understand that, but you have to be separated.
I studied law, and you have to have grounds in order to get married. Now, what they've done in Canada, for example, they've made it that you can get a no-fault divorce at the drop of a hat, and that's completely wrong in my view.
That cheapens marriage.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, marriage isn't cheap.
And the way society is set up, the divorce courts are set up, the child support courts are all set up. They favour the women 99.9% of the time. So I think going even further than what you're saying, I think they've made it now where it's a complete bad idea for a man to get married. Now, women might actually benefit out of it financially if it all splits up, and a lot of women actually are going into it for those reasons. They're not getting into it for any decent. They don't get into it for the wrong reasons. And somebody has said there, Paul O'Neill said, society, soaps, movies always portray single parent families as the norm. Yeah, that's the norm. So I would say, from my own point of view would be on this, there's absolutely nothing in it for a man now to get married. And I wonder about friends trying to do get married, and I really wonder about why they're taking an awful risk. They're taking all the risk. If it goes wrong, they're going to lose out. They're going to be kicked out of the house. They're going to have to pay child support for the kids. And basically, why do it?
True, and unfortunately, the courts favour the mother as the main provider for the kids over the father. Unless there's a good relationship between the mother and father to begin with when they break up. But it's too easy now. I'd say it's too easy where parents are splitting up, and it's become the norm. I think divorce, while you need it to a certain degree, because obviously things can go wrong, whether it's domestic violence or really had the marriage broken down for a reason.
And I will also say domestic violence is portrayed against blokes as well as women.
I understand that, yeah.
Clear on that point, yeah. Okay.
But you still need, there's no real provision or support for the family unit, despite our constitution. And our family unit is the basis of the constitution. But yet you can see it being eroded away between having, families who are split up. It's too easy to get divorced. And obviously you have the mother or the father not being able to stay at home if they want to, because financially it's very, very hard, because they have to work, even when one of them wants to stay at home. I know people who want to stay at home, they're quite happy to. Now, despite family initiatives like, parental leave, long maternity leave, which is a lot better than it was, it's still difficult for a mother to stay at home. Once they go back into work, they need to go back to work, because financially they need to raise the kid, they need to have money in their pocket to pay the mortgage and the crash. So you have two mortgages, really, instead of one.
But we're not at basic. We both agree that they're not incentivizing. Can you see the comments, by the way?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Paul's saying there's so many males end up homeless too when relationships break down. They do. The courts, and you said there, the courts completely favour the women in the breakup relationships, and that's not right at all.
And the Patriots not being bad fathers, when most men are good fathers and very loving fathers, just because the relationship is broken down between the mum and dad. It's a matter of just sitting down.
Yeah, most of the breakup of the relationships are initiated by the woman as well. Figures have proved that as well. But just going back to the point of the feminism, some of those videos have said that what it's produced is that women's happiness levels are a lot lower than they used to be back in the 60s, 70s, and even the 80s. So feminism, you're talking about those problems and all that. But maybe, what problems were there really in marriages? I mean, 99.9% were okay, and it was okay for millennia, not just centuries. There would be cases where there could be grounds for divorce brought in, but it's just to the point now. At work, there's only a small minority of marriages that probably had grounds for divorce. And does that mean that everybody has to have divorce at the drop of a hat? It's very similar to the abortion argument, where only the small hard cases they talk about are predominant or dictating to the majority. The majority of people, of children that are killed, are healthy children, and the minority of the hard cases are opening up the doors to this widespread abortion on demand. So it's a very similar kind of thing. You've got a tiny minority of things are dictating to the majority.
So the left is really saying you're unhappy, but even though they didn't know they're unhappy, it's like the feminists
actually. I think what they're actually, women have acknowledged now, they're no happier. They are no happier now. They've got all the rights in the world, and they're no happier than they were. In fact, they're more unhappy than they were when they wanted to, before they dismantled the whole marriage thing. Even how many marriages were really bad?
Well, I mean, okay, there are a certain amount. I mean, if we look at even marriages now, like, my parents' generation, they last a lot longer. Whereas in my generation, probably or younger, you wouldn't see anyone lasting 50 years. I doubt it very much. They wouldn't even last even 10 or 20. So anyone getting married past 20 years is doing quite well in today's society. If you get past 40 years, you're doing well. But that's gone back to grandparents and parents, people in the 60s and 70s.
So do you think it's the notion of equality? Is the notion of equality, is that what's getting in the way of a successful marriage? This idea where women have to be equal to men. And, they're not equal in this, they're not the same as men. They're equally valid, of course, but if they were just equal, what would be the point of the attraction? What would be the attraction if it was based on just being equal? Do you think equality is a bit of a red herring in that regard?
Well, to a certain degree, you see, if a woman, like as I said earlier on, women were kind of forced to stay at home once they got married, and that changed in the 70s. And as time went on, the more rights came in regarding maternity leave and other kind of leave and pay equality and all that. That is important. But you're right, women and men are different in the marriage, because obviously men could do different things. They're probably, different strengths, and women have different strengths. But I think we have to accept we're different, and because women probably to have a certain degree want the career, the marriage, the kids, the house, the car, the holiday, the promotion. they want everything, but yet at the same time they still have to be the mother when they go home. And there's certain things, there's not practices in the workplace that allow them to be the mother. And it's even when they have the parental leave, if they go up the foot of the career ladder, there's less time for the family. So if you're a manager or a director or a lawyer or a doctor, you have less time for your family, and the career becomes more important.
Yeah, but even the ones that have said
Not intentionally.
even the ones that have the top career are still saying that they're not happy because they don't have the family as well. Because if you have a career and you don't have a family, I mean, I'm going to sound very politically incorrect here. I'm sure it is, but if women are genetically able to have children, and if they're not going to do that, they're not going to be fulfilled in that regard. Even the most career women, they say that they're unfulfilled and unrewarded by not having children. So
right, I understand that. That's what I'm saying. The demands of the work now takes over their life, even whether they go through life missing the opportunity to have kids, or when they have kids, they don't get the time to be like job sharing. Like job sharing isn't always optional in certain like private sector, or in certain jobs where they don't have it, or the employer doesn't allow it.
Should we promote motherhood more as an option, a viable option for young women, rather than?
Yes, we do, and we should do. We should, and make it attractive that they could have the job they trained for, but yes, be a mother and not feel as though it should be one or the other. I can't have the kid because I don't have the money. Or I can't have that. I can't do this because I can't afford to have the child. But yet, when they're home with a child, they can't afford to give up their benefits. That's the other problem. They can't afford to give up the benefits. They lose money because they go back to work. So that's the flip side of it as well. So sometimes the benefits are more than going back to work, and sometimes that can't be good either, because they want to be able to don't want to be state dependent on to move forward and have a family. It's like it's one or the other. Sometimes it's not. They can't have both options open to them.
Well, I know the divorce rate in Ireland is very, very high at the minute. I think it's one of the highest in Europe, if not the world. So we're doing
considering we never had it for a while. It's actually quite bad. That's quite sad.
Yeah, we're doing something very badly wrong, really. When I know in Eastern Europe the divorce rates are not as high as they are in Ireland. So Ireland's just become so loony left, as we always say. I think that really needs to be looked at, and it's become almost unfashionable to be promoting things like traditional family values, but I think that's actually the more the better option. It should be considered. Anyway, another issue is gay marriage. Now, we've moved on from heterosexual marriage to gay marriage. Well, gay marriage is a contradiction in terms, because matrimony does not. Matrimony means motherhood in Latin, state of motherhood.
Yeah.
So two gay people, man or woman, produce a child together. They can't. Now, I'm not saying that two gay people cannot have a union. Of course they can. Absolutely, I'm the first to say that. When I was doing the law, we were all touching. The whole thing we talked about was civil partnership, where all the rights were guaranteed, and I'm absolutely all for that. But the notion of gay marriage that's a contradiction in terms. So some people joke they only want gay marriage so they can have gay divorce. So when all rights are guaranteed under civil partnership, I think it's another red herring to say equality is used to have this notion of gay marriage. What do you think of gay marriage, Karen?
I'm not really against it, but I don't think a civil partnership was fine. I agree with you on that. But marriage, I don't know, it's too far. What else do they want? It's almost as if they want, the more they get, the more they want.
Yeah.
And then, like kids, I'm being old-fashioned that way. I mean, in the beginning, I used to think it's okay for, say, two women to have a child or two men to adopt a child, whatever. But children need a male and female balance in their life.
Yeah.
They need both. And you see it as they grow up in society, how children, they have an absent father or they have an absent mother.
Yeah.
And that shows in society as they grow up, especially in the teenage years.
Yeah.
You know, and like
They need a parent. They need to be. You shouldn't be depriving children of a mother and a father. I think it's unfair to have both. But I mean, civil partnership, I'm all for it. Absolutely, that is equality. Gay people are entitled should have a partnership. Absolutely.
yeah.
Call something marriage, I think, is a little bit far. And the reason why it is unfair actually is because straight heterosexual couples aren't allowed to have a civil partnership. So that is an unfairness in there. You know.
So they don't even, yeah. So it's kind of like we've given more to the
Yeah.
gay couple than the heterosexual
Yeah.
couple.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
So
Yeah.
I mean, it is a good point that you say about it's going too far. What more is wanted? I mean, Paul has made the point there about ladies' football team shouldn't get the same wage as male ones because they get less viewers, mean less revenue. That's exactly the point. That's a very good point because it's the same as in women's tennis. Now, I think we touched on this last week. I have a major problem with women's tennis. I don't have a problem with any other women's sport. In fact, I love watching the women's golf, darts, everything, you name it, the athletics. But women's tennis is a major problem because take Serena Williams and Billie Jean King, they're always yapping and moaning about equality. Again, a Trojan horse. It's not equality because they're getting paid 4 times the amount that the men are getting because they're on court for less time. So that's an example of equality, the abuse of the word equality. So no, that's wrong.
Why are the women on court less time than the men?
Because
I wouldn't.
Well, because they play less. They only have to play best of 3, where the men play best of 5. So they're on court
Right.
nominally less time, and arguably a lot less entertaining. Most men's matches go on for 4 hours, where the women's matches don't even last an hour, sometimes half an hour. And for people like Serena Williams and all that, and Martina Navratilova, to ask for the same as the men, it's just outrageous. They're getting paid 4 times the amount that the men are getting paid. No, I think that needs to be. I mean,
that's wrong now. Yeah.
Yeah. In the darts tournament now, there's women that actually have played in the men's darts tournament, and I am all for that. That's properly.
That's better, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe have a mixed.
Yeah. They have done that. They're competing for the same on the same level as the men. There's a wee girl, Dobromyslova. She's Russian, and she's fantastic. And she played in the men's tournament. I thought that was great. Now, why doesn't Serena Williams put her money where her mouth is and play in the men's tournament? I mean, some would say she is. Some would say she's a man anyway, but that's another story. But no, I think if she wants equality, that would be proper equality. Play in the men's tournament. But no, that's not. They want to play in their own tournament and get the same as the men, which is completely unfair. It's the same as women's football. It shouldn't be getting the same pay as the men because it doesn't have the revenue. People aren't coming to pay it to watch it. So why should this? So that's an example of the abuse of the word equality. So you'd agree with that one, Karen, or?
Well, I have to say, I wouldn't be up to a sport like you, but I would agree with you on that because I think women, like, okay, it's great to see women do more sport and more football. It is coming along more than it was in the past. Absolutely. And rugby as well. And or hockey, whatever it is that they're involved in. But
I'm all
they should get paid according to the revenue coming in.
Yes, that's a straightforward. Yeah, they should do it.
And maybe change the rules on tennis around women and make them. Like maybe make it 4, best of 4.
Well, best of 5. The tennis tournaments are always played at the same time, concurrently with the men's ones, which is why they sort of dovetail or they piggyback in on the men's tournament, which is completely. That's why you get that unfairness. Whereas the golf tournaments are played separately and they're like standalone. So the women's tennis is the one standout problem with that inequality. And apart from that, there's all this massive grunting that they make, which is completely ridiculous, you know. So no, women's tennis is a bit of gets the thumbs down from me. Now, Karen, next one, we've got a lot to get through. Talking about gay rights, I'm all for gay rights, absolutely. Let's be clear on that.
Yeah, so am I.
Absolutely. I mean, back in the 60s when homosexuality was actually illegal, all the clamour for gay people then was so that they would be recognised. And they got recognition, which is fine, and I'm all for that. But now you seem to have an agenda where the LGBT thing wants to now, you have to actively promote it. And you look at everything on TV now, there's an over-representation. I think there's a thing in the news.
Yes.
There's an over-representation now of minorities on the TV. That came on the news yesterday, actually. They're now finding that there's an over-representation of it. whether it be minorities or gay people or whatever, Graham Norton, etc., you name it. I think it's
Yeah.
gone to the point where the pendulum has swung far too much the wrong way, and now
Yeah.
you have to actively promote it. And then don't get us started on the education, the drag education for primary school kids, and that's wrong.
Yeah, or book time and things like that. And I sent you something there during the week. Somebody posted up something where they have this kind of like a pavement or like a traffic stop, and they're going to paint the rainbow on the road, like to promote, like, you know, it's LGBT month, so they're going to do that. I think it's gone overboard. Like, I mean, I've seen and I've taken part in the Pride in Dublin for between the Union and other parties, and it's getting to the stage where they've gotten all these rights, and okay, they've done quite well, very well, especially in the last few years.
Yeah.
But then they're still going out now. They weren't out this year, obviously, for the what's kind of situation, but next year they will be out again and again and again, and it's like, how much more are they asking for? You know, I mean, we don't see gay people or straight people going out celebrating and say, I'm straight, you know, or you know, we accept, you know, I'm all for gay rights, like you say, but it's like they're pushing it too far where they become the majority, and they see it everywhere. If you look at a crime program, it's like a given that you're going to have a gay couple in it somewhere just to make a point. It doesn't. It's no longer about the program. It becomes like a political point. It's not right either.
Yeah, it's just the equality fascists. They have to have it in just for the reason. It's not part of that aggressive agenda. I mean, I was watching a program last night about the port thing and about the new border in the Irish Sea, and they had the journalist guy. He did this thing from a house supposedly in Ireland, north or south somewhere, and the person in the house was coloured or black. Now, I'm not being funny, but that's not representative of people in Northern Ireland or Southern Ireland.
Or in the area. You know.
I mean, what is the percentage of black people in Northern Ireland? It's about, I don't know, 5%, 2%, 1%. Why does the person have to be black? That's very unrepresentative, and that's just the blinking equality fascists having a blink and go again. You know.
Because if you're doing a film in Nigeria, you'd expect to see a black person.
Yeah, exactly. I was sort of
saying, Pakistani person or Chinese person. You expect to see the native person in that documentary.
I was kind of going, why is that bloke, that journalist, doing this thing with this African house? I mean, if you saw it, you'd laugh. You would laugh. It's I just thought, no, it's just these equality numbskulls at their work again. Yeah. So that's that sort of equality Trojan horse that I would refer to. Now, you brought up a very good point back in Donegal earlier about the masks thing. Now, the Trojan horse with the masks, the covering, the Trojan horse there is health. That's how they're going to bring in this business of covering up. And I'm even getting it myself now. I do think the mask thing is going too far. Now, I have a certain respect for the social distancing, but the masks, I think, is a bit of a no-no, especially since the evidence was all against it at the start. And I am starting to see now people are beginning to look at you more in shops when you're not wearing it. And you almost, when I was asked the other day, can you wear a mask? And I says, well, I'm exempt because of asthma or whatever.
Yeah.
And they shouldn't actually be allowed to ask you. It's illegal.
Yeah, I wouldn't even ask anybody. I mean, I don't personally care. You know.
The shopkeeper. It's the shopkeeper. This is the shopkeeper.
Yeah. You shouldn't ask you that question. Well, I'm finding that people are publicly policing each other, and that's what I'm getting a bit of that myself lately. And then because I work in a hospital now, they're starting to wear them on the corridors in between, you know, in your office and also on the corridor canteen. And it's like frowned upon if you don't. Now I'm still going around without one, obviously. But I think it's like people are not, you know, I mean, what I said to you a couple of months ago about the mask and okay, men are wearing them too. It's a public thing. It's a very gradual, very clever way
your phone
of getting used to. Sorry. Getting used to the idea.
Yeah.
Getting used to the idea that
it's subtly bringing it in by the back door.
Back door of getting
I think it is. Getting people
if I said that to somebody at work, they'll probably think, what are you talking about? You're crazy. Now, before we came on there, I was looking at, and maybe think about, when you're saying we're going to look at, like, burqas and, feminism and all that kind of stuff, and, society and whole. I was looking at Afghanistan and what it was like back in the 1960s before the Taliban took over. And they had a life just like ours. School, market, education, a good life, freedom. And then in 1996, Taliban came in and destroyed it. Girls couldn't go to school. All the freedoms were gone. That's how quickly it happened. Now, I know in England, they had a gradual process, say from the 1950s in multiculturalism, but it was a longer process. And what's happening in England now, the Sharia law, Islamic zones in London and different parts of, England. That, Birmingham in particular is very bad, I believe.
It could happen quicker than you think. It could come in quicker than you think. It could overnight, as you say, things could change so that it is nearly getting very disturbing how quickly now nearly everybody's walking around wearing a mask when the evidence is flimsy. Not that the masks are flimsy, but the evidence
they are.
the evidence is flimsy about the good that they do. Now, as I say, I do have a certain respect for the social distancing, and I've been following that, but I think the mask is too much. But when we go on, that brings us on to the Trojan horse that I would use there is health, is the Trojan horse we're bringing in this business of masks. The only thing where I think we're going to get out of this is an exit strategy is if they have a vaccine and give it to the older people. Now, I know we don't have a high opinion of the vaccine, but that's the only way I think. They're going round and round in circles with this. It's a merry-go-round. I can't see any way out of this. Can you? Bar a vaccine.
Yeah, obviously a lot of people have fear, in our circle have fears about the vaccine becoming mandatory. Now, I can understand it.
I don't think if it's made mandatory, that's going to be a big issue. But
it's a massive issue. It's a massive issue.
If they made it maybe for the vulnerable or for the over 80s or 70s or something, that might be something that could be looked at. But if it can't make it mandatory for under 70s, I think there's going to be a mass refusal of taking it. But I know
there was a big discussion about the children's one. What?
Yeah, the children's one. There's almost like a shaming thing going on. It's going back to that thing that not wearing a mask. You're almost like you're shamed. It's like that old ridiculous clapping outside your house. You were nearly put on Facebook if you weren't clapping outside your house.
Yeah.
But sorry, you were saying. I just think.
No, I'm saying I'm most concerned about the safety of what's in them. I'm not against vaccines, but the safety of them and what the materials are being used in them. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but I have very strong beliefs about the immune system and regarding flu vaccines because, today alone we had the first pop-up clinic for the flu vaccine for the health workers today. Now, it's obviously the usual discussion about, are you getting it or not? I go, well, I'm not getting it. I haven't had it in 10 years. My immune system will look out. As far as I'm concerned, it will look after me. I get through the winter. But it's like, if you don't get it and you're working in a hospital, you're right. People will publicly shame you in the sense that, why are you not getting it? You're in the hospital. You're going to spread that. Even without COVID, the flu in itself is obviously another big issue. Two things going on at the same time. But mandatory vaccines. England alone, there's two or three companies getting ready for this. They'll stop buying the vaccines once they're approved by the British government, and they're waiting for them just to be released. And to be honest, we need to. Both our governments are not given the right information regarding our health. The vaccine is like the solution, and then when you do that to the public will say, well, my government will look after me. I don't have to take responsibility for my own health or my children's health. It's like, food is no longer nutritious. I'll park my vegetables over here and I listen to government. That the nutrition is in the needle, in the actual vaccine. And that's wrong. You're responsible for your own health.
Yeah.
Educate yourself about food.
They're not educating people about
The
food.
message is wrong, and
Yeah.
then people need to understand that.
Yeah, but Paul is making a point there. They're going to start maybe taxing you more for not wearing masks and stuff like that. Well, I can see that coming in. I mean, they're not once they bring in it's the thin end of the wedge, they will never go back on it. You know, they need to be looking at. Some politicians up in the north have said, and the only ones that are arguing against these lockdowns are the unionists again, and they're more like a freedom party kind of thing. What they're saying, we need to look at an exit strategy from this. Now, my point from the word go, and I wrote the letters into the Belfast Telegraph and Independent News or the Irish News about why didn't they just stop the virus getting into these islands? They could have done that.
Yeah,
They
back in April, yeah.
they they can keep rabies out of Britain and Ireland, which is a dog disease which goes over to humans, but they didn't take the step by quarantine. They didn't take the steps to keep a virus out. Is that any wonder they're in this quagmire that they're in now? They're in an absolute quagmire. And they're obviously, okay, I know it's easy to criticise, but they're in a situation where they're damned if they do and damned if they don't now. But your man Simon Harris was asked at the very start, what about stopping free movement? Oh, free movement of people has to protect privacy. Well, then, in the midst of a vaccine, in the midst of a pandemic, surely, that was absolute bonkers. That could have stopped the thing coming. And the precedent for that was New Zealand. New Zealand have taken a better approach to it.
Yeah, yeah. But the only thing is, well, he's letting people in, willy-nilly, really, and they're still doing it.
Yeah.
They're stopping me and you going out. We can't even get out of our own county now. So free movement for people is not what they're saying at all.
No, there are a lot of free movement coming in, but they're stopping the free movement of the citizens in the country, which is the wrong blockage of freedom.
Yeah.
That's
stopping me going to down to Cork is not going to change anything. Stopping you going down to the south is not going to change anything.
Well,
I know cases that.
I mean, possibly, yeah. What I think there was obviously there was irresponsible behaviour from a lot of students up in Belfast, and there was very irresponsible behaviour. And take, for example, that Liverpool scenes last night. I mean, that is shocking in the midst of a pandemic. So we're now paying the brunt of that. The reason that there's a lockdown coming in the north, any wonder that the figures have spiraled. So there should have been some control or some foresight put into the students coming back, that they were obviously going to party, and they didn't see that one coming. So the people that are following the guidelines are now paying the price from that behaviour. So they're going to have to learn lessons on that. But it's a pity that the people, like, I don't know about you, but I've been following the measures mostly. I'm not spreading it around to anybody. And now we're all suffering from these lockdowns that are coming back in. So it is an extraordinary. It does make you very, very angry that they could have kept it out. Ireland is an island, or haven't they noticed? Yeah. They could have kept it out, and then you would have had a minimal amount of it in the country. And now they're running around like idiots, not knowing what to do how to break the cycle of it. I honestly, I can see it going on for another year. They've done 7 months. What's another 12 months?
But then that'll affect the economy. We won't have an economy left. And despite what we see in the budget yesterday, where they've seemed to have loads and loads of money to support businesses, well, I'm sure the businesses don't want to be in debt to the government. There's no point in you being open and have all this debt. And you'll never really make a profit if you're constantly being in debt to the government. I mean, how many billions do they fucking have to spend? And they're not looking at other countries to learn their lessons, like Sweden, for example. Why are Sweden doing so well?
Well, I mean, I saw the figures in Sweden. I mean, Sweden do have slightly higher figures. I will admit that, but I mean, their overall economy hasn't taken the hit. I mean, I know it's a big moral choice to make. I mean, you're probably going to see people in their 80s are going to be affected by it, but I'm not so sure there's blanket lockdown. I think it does need to be, and somebody in Sinn Féin did say, and I did agree with the terminology he used, the lockdown is basically a blunt instrument. It needs to be, I think it needs to be more targeted at certain people that are causing the spread of it, like student behaviour. What do you think?
Well, that could be useful, but you don't want to blame every young person either, because if I was a teenager now, I certainly I wouldn't be thinking about being social distant from my friends. You wouldn't be thinking about those lines. Very few.
You would have to think about it. You'd have to think about it, being socially
Well, when you're a teenager, you don't. That's the thing. It's
well,
not,
yeah, but
I'm not being.
now you will. Now you will have to think about it. Let's be honest.
But you have to find maybe other ways of maybe educating them, and also educating the nation nationally.
Well, I mean, they had
on nutrition.
I know, but they had 6
Sorry?
months. They had 6 months to be educated about it. There was no excuse for some of the scenes that we saw in Belfast and elsewhere. They were spreading it around, you know. So it's no wonder a month later we're now back in a lockdown up north. You know, there's no prizes for seeing that one coming. You know, so the students should have.
Well, it's a two-pronged fact. You could, to a certain degree, we're being a police state, make them aware of what's going on. The students, help them, their immune system, because their immune system between their social life is going to take a hit, because they won't necessarily be always looking after themselves all the time compared to, say, someone who's an adult or who's older.
They caught on to it. They brought in the police and the council and everything. We're starting, and the fines and all come in, but they really should have known better. What was the point of all that lockdown over the summer? And then they're going to go buck mad when I know you can't. Well, you can't blame them really. They should have known that was going to happen. You know, now we're all paying for that. You know, and any wonder Liverpool's going mad because of the scenes with the likes that we saw there last night. You know. But I think prevention would have been better than cure, and we could have kept the blinking thing out. Obviously, you know. What gets me is why is China's figures so low? It was where it started, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen that, and none of the leaders are sick.
Yeah.
But yet, you know.
Well, how do we explain that one?
And that's why I'm always tipping on the side of, was it real? You know, I'm not a denier, but it's just like, well, how are they managing it? You know, and Sweden, obviously, you know, there's certain countries who are managing it quite well, and yet our country, our leaders, are refused to look outside their own country and say, well, look over there, they're doing it. What are we not doing? And we'll match it and try it. You know, locking down the country is forcing people to lose their jobs.
I mean, lockdown.
One minute you're open, next minute you're not.
Yeah, lockdown is their answer to everything. You know, I mean, this is why I think they will learn lessons from some of that behaviour, and that they know they're going to go into lockdown again. But it shouldn't be the only answer. There should be other answers to it. Lockdown shouldn't be the answer to more lockdown. Shouldn't be the answer to everything. Somebody said, Paul said that we were in lockdown until they started pushing the other agenda, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, so it's
that's what I'm saying. I don't believe these lockdowns they're not about our health. That's why I'm a bit worried about. Students seem to take the brunt of it. Yes, they are. You know, they're enjoying their student life. They're young people, and they're going to be going out having a few drinks. They're starting their career. They're starting their student life. Maybe they're in first year. So it's like I find it very difficult to blame the students. Because to tell you the truth, they're just being young. If I was 18, 15, 12...
There is this pandemic on, Karen. You can't have 1 minute be responsible and then the next minute do that. We have to sort of, if we're all going to be socially distanced and trying to do our best, we can't have that behaviour.
Well, what did we do last year?
Well, we didn't have this.
This is a coronavirus. It's just a new coronavirus, that's all. Of the coronavirus family.
Well,
we're not educating the public about what it actually is. We're just giving this fear of wrong information and social distancing and wearing masks and keeping away from each other. If I had a cold, I wouldn't be shaking your hand. I have good manners. I wouldn't be shaking anyone's hand and say, "Listen, I have a cold. Keep away from me."
But you might not have it in the first 3 days. How do you know? You would have it. You could bring it round to your elderly parent.
The ordinary cold, I mean.
You could have this
and not be symptomatic.
You could have this virus and not be symptomatic and bring it around to your elderly parent.
Yeah, but I'm not going to walk around in fear thinking, "Oh God, I might have it." If that was the case, I wouldn't leave my house.
That's okay. That's up to you. But then you have to respect others that want to protect their elderly parents.
I do protect my. I don't see them every day. I don't even see them every week.
Well,
you know,
as long as you respect that there's others that don't quite share that opinion. Scamdemic, yeah.
But how long are we going to continue like this? You see, as this
Well,
social
that's what
distancing
this is
is
what I'm
very,
saying. Well, what I'm saying
it's
is, I would like
psychologically damaging.
absolutely it is. I'd like to see an exit strategy from it. I'm not denying that there is a virus there. There is, and I'm saying I don't think those students should be having that behaviour because they're going to feed into this narrative that there's going to be another. They're going to help them go back into lockdown. So the responsibility, there's no harm in being responsible, having responsible behaviour while we're in this. But I think there's this phrase that they're always using, guided by the science. It's going to take a point where they're maybe going to have to say, and as Veronica and all they did say they're not going to go completely by the science. They're going to take a political decision outside of that. And I think that's what Boris Johnson's trying to edge at. He's trying to suggest that it's not all about just going by exactly what the science says, you know.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because there's a flip.
Well, the science can maybe, you don't know exactly. It can change. One minute it's saying one thing, 1 minute, especially on the masks, it said that, you know.
I'm serious, and I have serious concerns about the whole economy. I don't care how good the budget might seem. You cannot have the whole country in that much debt without certain, repercussions. And having a business 1 minute closed, open a few months, and then you're closed again in different parts of the country. And then you have France, and you've seen what I sent you there tonight before we came on. France is going to have a serious curfew of 9 o'clock till 6 in the morning. That means any business at all have to close down at 9 o'clock. Any bars, you can't even go out. That sounds to me very, very draconian.
Well, we've all done our sacrifices. I mean, everybody has taken sacrifices. I've done as well. There's been no foreign holidays and stuff. And we're now back in lockdown again. It looks like we're going to do it. You know, I'm not so sure the lockdown actually is working really, you know, because we had the whole lockdown over the summer and now we're going back into it again. I think that they're going to have to look at doing something other than lockdown. It can't be the answer to everything. Social distance and other things. Let life go on, but with restrictions. Would that not be better?
Yes, but I mean, what kind of restrictions do you want? I mean, if people can't even have a business, and we can't even go into
are you saying that there should be nothing then?
Better education and better nutritional information. That's what's not getting out there.
Right.
I find that they're looking for the solution in a syringe. Right. And the solution's in your food.
Well, that's not going to happen, Karen. You know that.
Well, that's what we're trying to tell them. You know, we're trying to tell people that vaccination is not the answer. You will not get your food in a syringe. You have to eat it and drink it and get more value from your food. But you're busy eating processed food and the wrong food, and yet, we'll give you a syringe to solve that problem.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the virus.
So are you not going to get? So are your hairdressers still closed down south then? You're not going to get your hair done.
Well, I never have to wear a mask. I mean,
come on. I mean, you're not going to make an exception there.
No.
Right.
That's not right.
You're coming across.
It's not the responsibility of any business.
You're heading dangerously towards the no wash protest there, Karen. You know. That's what they did in the dirty protests in the maze. I think you're going to have to. I'm going to have to make an exception. You're going to have to make an exception there, Karen. Come on. I've tried to hint at you. You're going to have to bite the bullet on that one.
Bite the bullet on what?
Getting your hair done. If it has to be a mask for half an hour, get your hair done.
No, you see, what I'm trying to say is no business has a right to tell you to wear a mask when you're in their shop or their hair salon or bar or bookstore. It's not their business. They're in the business of retail. So when you walk into a shop to buy a book or go into a hair salon to wash your hair, get hair washed,
you don't do that.
Or just, huh?
You don't do that. You don't do that.
Do what?
Well, go in and say you're exempt then. There's Suzanne Brown is saying, go in and say you're exempt.
Yeah, but you have to turn around and prove it. You shouldn't have to prove. It's not their business. If I was a hair salon owner, I want my customers to coming in to get their hair cut. That's all I'm interested in, and they pay for what they get. That's all I'd be interested in. I'm not a GP. I am not a nurse, and I'm not the government.
You're the only person I know that hasn't had their hair cut in 7-8 months. Everybody I know has had. I've had my hair cut about 6 times. Done it myself.
You know, you've done it yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not.
You've done it yourself.
Yeah, but if I was a female, I'd be getting my hair done. Sorry.
I wouldn't be getting a mask. I wouldn't be wearing a mask.
Well, that's a very extremist position to take.
It's not. It's not extreme. I know other people who won't get their hair cut.
What other things are you refusing to do then?
Well, I won't walk in. If somebody tells me I have to wear a mask in the shop, I walk out. Now, in most places that I've been in, it's fine. I say 9 times out of 10, I've been fine. But it's only in 1 or 2 shops that were. But I got to know which ones will tell me. And it's only a matter of time. It's like, you get to know certain places that won't bother you, like Marks and Spencer's, Dunn Stores, places like Eason's and things like that. But in certain shops, maybe the smaller shops will.
It could be a little bit unhygienic to not have your hair done,
What do you mean?
Well, it is a bit. It's not very hygienic,
I wash my hair every freaking day.
How long are you going to let it grow?
I don't know when all this stuff is over.
Well, so it's going to be another 1.5 years then.
I don't know. We're meant to be talking about, other stuff, not my hair.
Right. I'm only messing, right. Okay. Anyway, Suzanne has said that she hasn't had her done yet. Fair enough, right? Okay.
There you go.
I'm outnumbered on that, right? Okay. Well, sisterhood there.
I mean, why would France close down a country at 9 o'clock to 6 in the morning? Now, having a person say going out for a drink or just going for a walk with the dog, which some people do walk late with their dogs and at night, or going home from work, maybe they were on a late shift or something like that from a shop or something. That having a curfew at 9 o'clock doesn't make any difference to a virus. I'm sorry, it does not stand up.
Right.
Paul
O'Neill said you're exempt under Section 6 of the Health Act. And the Garda can't even ask you for health records if you don't want to get it. There you go. DT has saying here, has retired from YouTube. Applause for 1 year of service, fully legit. And he says he shares his own.
Well, for you.
He says he shares his own hair. Okay, Carl, I'll make you a treat. What about you go? I'll help you get a haircut then, and I won't make you wear a mask. How's that?
And who's going to cut it?
I'll cut it.
You?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus! There's nothing left. Nothing left. Jesus.
I'm just trying to lighten the mood, but what about that? What about that? And that's an option for you. You might sort it.
An option, yeah. But I actually do want to let it grow, but I obviously want to get trimmed. You don't want to get cut altogether. Not trimmed and styled or whatever, and just general tidy up, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. DT saying he's washing his clothes now. Right. Okay.
It
was a bit tongue in cheek there about that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Karen does not need haircut at the minute. Long hair looks good. There you go.
Who said that?
DT.
Oh, I don't see that yet.
Right. Big stores don't.
Thank you, DT.
Big stores don't ask or question about masks. I must admit, I was actually asked. It was only yesterday, actually, or the day before. It was the first time I had been asked. But I just gave the old exempt thing.
Yeah, but I find like what Paul is saying there, that bigger stores don't tend to. It's the smaller ones.
Yeah,
It'd be a small store on the high street, the health store maybe, or a small shoe shop maybe.
Yeah.
And one charity actually asked me, and I was leaving in clothes with them. They're a Vincent de Paul actually here in Drogheda, and I often go into them and we clothes in or buy books, whatever. No mask, and I said sorry. Well, I just walked out naturally enough. So Lidl is very strict about masks. That's interesting. But I don't shop in Lidl.
Yeah, I don't. Aldi doesn't.
In fact, I stay away from Lidl and Aldi altogether.
Yeah, Aldi doesn't ask. No, there definitely is a wee bit of they're going to start.
Do they not want customers? You know.
Well,
I mean, I would want customers in my shop.
true.
I would want them buying clothes. I mean, the footfall, I'm sure, is down. If you look in any store now, they're empty. Even in Dublin, they're empty. Easton's empty. I mean, Easton's used to be thriving. You go in there and there'd be people everywhere. Now it's empty.
Yeah.
Even I don't want to go into anymore. You know, that's what I'm saying. It puts you off shopping. So it doesn't really matter if the government turned around and said, we give you a lump sum there to look after you, support you. The customer's not coming in. So you're going to be in debt for a very, very long time as a business person.
Suzanne Brown is saying, pennies don't ask me, can I just walk? Pennies don't ask me, she just walks in. Pennies.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's very popular store. I don't shop in Pennies, but, you know, I might go in an odd time, but I haven't been in it now since it opened in June. Because all I could see was queues. I know it's calmed down a good bit, but that's what I'm saying. You have to pick and choose who will let you in, who won't. And I'd say, yeah, I'll walk out if I have to. I have had done that on a couple of occasions. But businesses need to have the guts to, you know, say, well, listen, we want customers. The customers are not going to drop dead just because they're standing in a queue buying clothes. With or without masks, they're not going to. They want to buy clothes in the store, in the high street as normal. What's going to happen at Christmas? Because Christmas is not that far away. And Halloween is now cancelled. Children are being told they can't trick or treat. I mean, everything about our lives that we've done.
Well, that's
before.
good. I don't want children coming around harassing people for money, you know.
No, I mean, I don't have that problem. But I'm saying if you're a parent
basically, it's harassment of elderly people and everything else coming around asking for. It is harassment with menace, you know. I hate to be killjoy, but I mean, coming around banging on people's doors and looking for money, it's extortion. Sorry, it's extortion.
Poor kids. But you know, I'm sure if you, when you were done it as a child, you enjoyed
it. I did, yeah. But
I'm saying it's a very
my legal hat on. It is actually extortion with menace.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, but I'm looking at it from a parent and a child point of view. It's another thing that they've been told they can't do. They can't have their communion. They can't have their confirmation. You know, they can't play with their kids. You know, in the classroom, they have to have pods. They can't do anything. They have to wear masks at school. Now they can't trick or treat. What else are they going to be told they can't have? No Santa Claus this Christmas if you're in that age group. You know, everything's just killed for them. From a child's point of view, everything's just gone. And we haven't even got to Halloween yet.
Time off school, but I think they're better off at school. They're destroying the high street, forcing people online. Yeah, I agree with that.
Cashless society, yeah, and I try and stay away from that. You know, I don't buy on the online. I'm buying shops as much as I can, and I use cash when I'm out unless I have to use a card. We need to keep doing that. We need to tell the retailers I'm using my cash, and support them. You know, there's a campaign now in Drogheda to kind of support the hospitality industry, but the hospitality industry needs to start breaking the rules as well. You need to say, you know, we're not going to throw our customers out after an hour and 45 minutes. I've seen it happen. They can't do it. I was only in a restaurant there 2 weeks ago. We weren't thrown out after an hour and 45 minutes. We were allowed to stay as long as we wanted. And that's what the hospitality industry need to do. And if you start throwing people out, believe me, they won't come back.
You know? I know. It's very unfortunate. Is everything going to be closed down, do you think, in life?
I don't know. I actually don't know yet. and we don't even know if they're going to do what they're suggesting. I only heard that today. My manager was telling me about, they might look at the border counties. If Louth and Down and Donegal and Derry is going to make any difference. Yeah, there is high numbers, but people are working. They're going, they're going to be moving around, going to work and going to shops and, getting in their cars and mixing with people and friends and colleagues. And if you see, the more, what they're not getting is, the more the case you do, it's becoming a case-demic. The more cases are going to be in the news. It's going to be higher. So I don't know why they're getting upset about these cases. Now they're saying they're going to put more ICU beds in the system, but they should be there anyway. No point putting them in now.
Well, they're saying they're running out. They're saying they've only got 3 left in Belfast.
3 what?
3 beds left in Belfast. 3 intensive care beds left.
But how many of them is COVID cases?
What?
I mean, I don't know how many beds are in Belfast.
There are only 3 left in Belfast intensive care.
But how many of the beds occupied are they COVID cases?
I don't know. I don't know. But all I'm saying, 3 left, not that many, is it?
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They need more ICU beds generally to cope with the demand of people who are sick across all kind of sicknesses.
So you're saying bring more beds, get more beds in there.
Yeah, exactly. But it should always be the case. If you have a bigger population and an aging population, and you're going to have more sick people. That's north and south of the border. I mean, they don't have as many ICU beds, even for children in Crumlin Hospital. They, if we have a child coming in and they're getting cardiac surgery, you have to have an ICU bed afterwards. Otherwise, it gets cancelled. So they're in there for cardiac surgery, nothing to do with COVID. And we have very low cases, obviously, in the paediatric area. Now, it's increasing a little bit now everybody's back at school. But at the same time, the system is failing the population with or without COVID. And that's the issue. And they keep on blaming COVID cases. That's wrong. That's a different message.
They need to have a different approach. I think one thing that has been said that they're not going to be having another lockdown for schools. Is my mic coming through okay?
Yeah.
They're not going to be coming through. They're not going to be doing any further school lockdowns after this 2 weeks up in the north. And they're going to say one way or the other, I think that's going to be the last of it. I hope so. But they really do need to have another look at lockdown. Can't be the answer to everything. They need to start not ignoring the science, but taking that on board, but making a slightly more pragmatic view to move it forward, to try and find some way of getting out of this cycle, because it's kind of going nowhere, really, isn't it?
But if you look at the deaths compared to people who are actually have cases, like we had a colleague who was tested recently, very recently, and the take on in the hospital is you have to stay at work despite being negative. And that puts pressure on the employer. It doesn't make sense. When you're negative, you're negative. And it just doesn't, the whole system it's not looking at any logical way.
Well, I couldn't understand why they're still allowed people to travel out of the country over the summer and back in. Because they don't want to stop that.
Well, they could have stopped people coming in, definitely, from America, especially, or anywhere else.
I still think they still should have stopped people going on holiday. I didn't go on my holiday abroad this year. I'm not going to be able to go at Christmas, so I'm prepared to do that sacrifice. I don't mind doing that. But I don't know how everybody else seemed to go away abroad over the summer. That doesn't seem to make sense to me. So kept it more self-contained in the island. Britain as well. I don't know why they didn't do that. That's what I'm
saying. They don't.
So why did they do that? Now they're in a lockdown again, virtually. Why did they do that and then let people go on abroad, holidays abroad? Obviously, they weren't going to be able to police any quarantine,
But that's what I'm saying. They contradict themselves and said that it was very serious, but yet they let people go about. And then they restrict. It's almost as if they let you out for 5 minutes and they bring you in and they keep you there for months. And that's it's frustrating for people. And it's it's psychologically damaging no matter which way you look at it. Financially, economically,
Oh, absolutely.
physically.
It's very. Let's not underestimate the mental health effects of
Mm.
any sort of lockdown. It's a significant thing. It's actually a little bit depressing when you think about it. You're
Oh,
not. It's kind
yes.
of we're getting into the dark evenings now, and it wasn't so bad over the summer. But it was bad enough, but no, I really hope they're going to have another a different look at this. They can't condemn people to a winter of lockdown. I think there's going to be a major kickback against it. I think.
Yes, but I think the public need to push back. I know the recent, anti-lockdown demonstrations going on in Dublin, they get the blame, but no one's to blame but the government doing these lockdowns. There's no point in blaming each other. We all need to push back and say, no, this is not acceptable. It's not just our freedom, it's psychologically damaging to anyone to keep them at home. And what's happening is as well that they're deliberately frustrating people coming home from work, because I'm getting later home because they're slowing down the traffic on the way home from Dublin. So it's taking people more than an hour or 2 hours getting home than they would normally. And it's down to traffic management, and they're keeping the slowing down the traffic. So hopefully maybe people will stay at home next time. But it's not working. People are coming, they're going about their business as usual, and that's what we need to keep doing, because otherwise if they think it's working, they keep on doing it. They let you out at Christmas, and then January they put in another lockdown. So that's what we're going to be up against. 1 month out, 2 months in. They're going to be punishing us all the time. Yeah. And that to me is quite psychopathic in nature. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we need more people pushing back. We need to start having public meetings. We're not reaching the general population. Public meetings in hotels talking about what's really going on behind the scenes of COVID.
We're going to have trouble having a public meeting in the hotel at the minute, though.
Sorry?
We're going to have trouble having a public meeting in a hotel at the minute.
Well, they're not closed down. Hotels aren't closing down.
Oh, they're
it's
not.
Just local. You just can't go outside your local. I mean, you could have one in Drogheda, for example, and one in Dublin.
Well, we can't have one in the north. I'm saying we could maybe have one down in. Yeah, but if you go up north, you wouldn't be able to have one.
Why are they closing down?
The whole hospitality thing. If you've not seen the news today, the whole hospitality thing is closed down for 4 weeks up north.
Right. Okay. It's more stricter up there than it is down here. You see.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, you still could have that down the south, where you can have public meetings about what's really going on, and a lot of people don't know their rights around their movement and their freedom of speech and freedom of movement and freedom to work.
Yeah.
We had a booklet, a small blue booklet, letting people know their rights in the Constitution, what they can do. We'll probably reach more people beyond Facebook. We're not reaching people beyond Facebook. I don't care what anyone says. We all see people relying on Facebook to get out the message. We're all going around in circles, and it's not enough anymore.
Somebody there said a guy has joined. Global guy. Hi guys, Dev1916 sent me here. Welcome aboard. There's one guy. I'll just briefly go through that. Irish people are too used to soft abuse by institutions and government. It's hard to rouse them into action. A lot of people have, if you can't beat them, join them mentality.
Yes, that's true. It's like they accept a new normal, and I'm tired of that word new normal.
Yeah.
It's not a new normal. There's nothing natural about what we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, even if I want to stay in my own country for a holiday, which I often go away in winter, like I go away for a few days in November, I can't do that. If I want to go down to Cork, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Is that what my government is telling me? But yeah, you can holiday in Ireland, but no, you can't go outside your own county. Sorry. That's not good enough. Right.
How long ago was the lockdown down south? 3 weeks ago, was it? 1 week? 2 weeks ago, was it, or last week?
God, I'm losing track. About 2 weeks ago now, yeah.
So it's set
in Dublin, it's good. It's good 2 weeks anyway. And Louth, we don't really have one. It's Dublin. Then Louth, but then the whole county then is all Louth. The whole county south now is in lockdown 3. But it's almost as if it's like they're preparing us for permanent control, that they can do this whenever they want. I do not believe this is about our health. A lot of people do feel like that. And it's a bit like the masks. They're bringing them in softly and slowly to get used to this, Islamification of Ireland.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, sometime in the future, women are wearing burqas. And we can't do this and we can't do that. Now I've been too soft to be like, oh yeah, just reading an old one there.
I can see it coming. Well, look, a few new people have come in there, actually. Look, welcome aboard, everybody, and thank you very much for all the comments and that.
Mm-hmm.
We started off talking about the Trojan horses and all the things about the gay marriage, the marriage thing, feminism and that. And what a good bit of a chat about that at the start. So anybody that's come in late will get that when it's up online. But we've been online now for over an hour, as I say. Backward ideas about sovereignty. Yeah, they don't want people meeting up in groups and getting backward ideas about sovereignty. Yes, like Micheál Martin.
Yes, and
exactly.
I'm looking at that comment. That is actually very interesting, and it's often thought about. They're deliberately trying to frustrate the efforts, say, the likes of us and the likes of Yellow Vest, and not organising and meeting, as if we don't do that already. We can do it regardless. I mean, it's not stopping anything. I mean, last Saturday, even though with all the violence, people still went out and demonstrated against the lockdown. Now, I'm sure the Yellow Vest will come together at some point and do it again. But it's important that we keep up this work. But we need to start rethinking and talking to people on the street. I know you can't come down for another month at this point, but it's like we need to start talking to people on the street, and even having new leaflets. Now, I want to run a day by you some stage now over the weekend about what I want to do a stream on in the future. But I think we need to start looking at public meetings. Public meetings have a huge impact because you're reaching the person on the street. You're reaching the person who's not looking at Facebook or not looking at what we do. And we need to look beyond that. Not everyone's, paying attention, or they don't know their rights. And we need to start really even bringing that new leaflet start with, say, do you know your constitutional right? Why is your church closed? Things like that. Why do you agree with your church being closed? I mean, even though I'm not a practicing Catholic, I don't think it's right that a church is closed.
I sent you an email. I sent you a wee message there, Karen. Just have a quick look at that about something that we could do for it. It's on your phone there. I sent it through to you.
But now, do you want to see it now?
No, I sent it through just related to what you were saying there. It might be an idea. Do you want to have a quick look at it? It's on your, and then we can. All right, that's an interesting point there. You see that one?
Right.
Paul O'Neill.
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean? Paul O'Neill said Yellow Vests brought March to Grafton Street last Saturday and took a knee. Well, I don't know what that's all about. This is what I mean about the Yellow Vests. I don't understand doing that.
They brought March to Grafton Street and took a knee. No, they didn't. No, they didn't take a knee. They brought it to Grafton Street, and they all sat down to make it an anti-mask demo. They're telling people not to wear their masks, and people reacted yes and no, or discussed it, or yeah, it's a good idea. But they wasn't taking a knee. I'm not sure about that now. And people sat down on the ground for about 20 minutes or something. But nothing to do with taking a knee. It wasn't to do with the BLM.
And let's be clear, most of the violence was from Antifa, wasn't it?
Last Saturday, yes, absolutely. That was clear. I wouldn't imagine. The National Party would be engaging in that. Unfortunately, it's always against. If it was us that was doing it, it'd be the same thing. Anytime we go out, Yellow Vests or National Party, they're always going to be there. Unfortunately, they were bigger than the actual crowd. Unfortunately, you know.
Jake Hall said, did they actually take a knee? I mean, does he mean take a knee for Black Lives Matter? I don't know. Hopefully not. But look, we've had a good discussion, Karen, about the feminism, the Trojan horses, and a good chat about. Oh yeah, there's one point I wanted to just finish on about in relating to Brexit, which is still going on at the minute with all of this. I mean, there's no reason when you look at the EU's customs and trading area and all, you've got countries like Iceland and Norway and Switzerland and Liechtenstein and Luxembourg. Maybe not Luxembourg, but the rest of them aren't in the EU, but they can still trade freely with the rest of the EU. In other words, the EU makes exceptions for them. So they could very easily make an exception for Ireland. They're choosing not to, just to scupper the whole Brexit process. There's no way. Ireland is one country that definitely needs an exception from being in the EU proper. They can be in the free trade thing, but not in the EU because of Brexit, and that would be to our interests. But the Europhile leaders of the country just can't see further than the EU.
Yeah. It's to do with the leaders, not,
Yeah.
If we got different leaders, it'd be a different story.
Right.
Like ourselves, I
mean, Iceland, for God's sake, is a country that's not in the EU, but it has allowed free trade with Europe. So
yeah.
Paul is saying they took a knee, but it was sent around the world that the Irish were on their knees. Typical media twisting of the facts, really, isn't it? You see that comment?
Well, I'm just like, I'm not sure it was nothing to do with BLM. It was to do with the anti-mask. They sat down in Grafton Street because they wanted to show people we're here, we're not wearing a mask, we're telling you not to wear a mask, and we're making a statement, and nothing to do with BLM. I didn't even think of it like that. When I seen it on the day, I wasn't even thinking about that. They sat down on the ground, and that's what they did. And they were telling people going around telling people to take off their masks. They were giving them courage. Listen, this is this is us. We're not wearing masks. It's such a big deal. It's not dangerous not to wear a mask. That was the statement. That was the message. I didn't think it was taking the knee. Obviously, we don't want to go down that road. We don't want to be doing that at all.
No, sir.
I wouldn't say that.
No, we do not want to be going down that road. I mean, what about the amount of we talk about Black Lives Matter? What about the amount of black abortions there's been in the world this year? Does that not matter?
No, I mean they seem to they don't really talk about it. I don't know if many black women do abortions. I don't know what the statistics are on
that. I put a thing up on the internet on Facebook about the number of abortions. There's been millions and millions of abortions this year compared to the amount of COVID deaths.
Yeah, I've seen that, yes.
Out of that, you saw that, out of that thing about the abortions, how many of those were black abortions? Do those lives not? I mean, is an abortion not a life? Is that not a life? People would argue it's not actually a child yet, but it's still a life, isn't it? So that's...
Yes.
Anyway, mainstream media propaganda again, I would say. Yeah, I agree. And Paul was saying they should never went on knee, never. Yeah, bad optics. That bad idea.
Yeah, especially in sport.
Oh, sport, absolutely. That's why it's becoming very. It's just. I don't know. The whole idea that there are no crowds. They're bringing that into conditioning as well with the no crowds.
Yeah. Sorry.
They're going to sort of manipulate that and condition people into taking a knee before the match now, for everything.
Yeah. Well, it's up to the fans to turn around and say no. The
fans aren't in, you see, but
what I'm saying is it can't last forever. I mean, unless, they've been different
agenda. Could be for an all year.
I mean, we haven't even had any GAA games or nothing. We've nothing. I mean, a whole fabric, a whole culture.
I'm not actually sure. Maybe if any of the viewers said, are the GAA taking the knee? Hopefully not. Hopefully not. But they obviously they had the big bead thing in Croke Park, didn't they?
Yeah, and that's something that really still, bothers me a lot. And I think I'm doing it again next year. And I just really, between the mass and the Eid celebration and having an imam in a church, they're preparing you slowly but cleverly, saying, "Oh, sure, that's fine. It's equality, and it's we're accepting
Again, it's
another
equality.
religion. We're having a conversation."
It's that Trojan horse, you see. It's the Trojan horse of equality. I mean, I saw a thing in the
Yeah,
news last year about a primary school, a Catholic primary school somewhere, and they were saying because of so many Muslims coming into the school, we're now letting, instead of having the Bible sitting out where they always had it as you go into the school, they're now putting the Quran out. And I wrote a letter
yeah,
in or an email, and I says, "Hang on, is this not a Catholic church? Why are you putting the Quran out? It's a Catholic church, sorry, school. It's a Catholic school, isn't it? Why are you putting the Quran out? If it was a Muslim school, you wouldn't be putting the Bible out." So
yeah. That's
I didn't
true.
get, I didn't get a reply by the way.
Mm. And I know it was recently
And
now
he
they're
thought he
trying
was
to
doing,
take the
sorry to interrupt, Karen. He was doing all this classic virtue signaling on the news and saying, "Look at us, aren't we such great schools here? We've got all these ones, and we're putting out the Quran to make them feel welcome." But it's a Catholic school, you know.
yeah,
Sorry, go on ahead. You were saying.
and trying to take crucifixes and all that kind of thing off
Yeah, yeah,
schools.
they're doing that.
That's
Yeah,
something else. I mean,
they're doing that as well.
I'm sure there are Catholic churches in the Muslim world, but they're not allowed to have a foothold the way the Islams are here. If we don't start pushing back, we're going to be an Islam country in the next 20 years.
Oh, I know.
You know?
I mean, Jay Cahill has said there he cancelled his Sky Sports because of the teams taking a knee before every game. I mean, I would do it myself. I would do it myself. I mean, it's a disgrace. Uh, it really is
You're
irritating.
going to look at a team playing football or rugby, not to be,
They'll do it
it shouldn't be politics.
At
No
least they'll do it
politics.
for golf. All the crosses are being taken off the screen. or the chess.
Oh Jesus! Before you put anything on the board.
Imagine that. Imagine that. Oh,
Oh, that'd be really bad now, I have to say.
I'd have to stop playing. The
You have
GA.
to, yeah, and stop playing golf and stop playing your
Oh God.
anything,
I was just Humans has said the GA turned Croke Park into a mosque, so fact them and the irrelevance. Well, I feel a bit funny wearing my GA top at the minute because of the way they did that. I mean, is there nothing left? I'm trying to find what can you hang on to. I think a mate of mine said
that's Irish.
Yeah, a mate of mine says that the rugby aren't doing it so much. So maybe that's something. Maybe it's rugby shirts from now on instead of GA tops.
And that's another thing that's starting next month as well. It's rugby season coming up. I mean, is that going to be stopped too?
I don't know.
Because I mean,
I think they're saying
that's what
elite sports is going to continue. Jay Cahill says schools barely have any cross on display anyway, and the hospitals, taking it all out of hospitals too. Yeah.
Well, that's how the Taliban started back in the in the 90s. They took away life as people knew it: sport, social occasions, family life.
Well, that's why
freedom, education.
At the start, I mean, traditional values. I know it's politically incorrect, and I mean, maybe some people don't like the views on feminism and that, but when we go back to those days up until the 50s and 60s and all, people were happier. It was traditional. You didn't have your divorces. Society was more cohesive and more successful. I know it's politically incorrect, but it was better.
No, and what I'm saying is, if we go, I mean, the Islam, they don't want us having a life. Do you know what I mean? So they're taking away the things that we enjoy: football, hockey, GAA, rugby. All the things we enjoy certain times of the year. So we're going into rugby season. No, sorry.
O'Reilly's made the point to put out there. Rupert Murdoch owns the GAA when he bought the TV rights with Sky and stuff. Yeah, once GAA went over to Sky, it's become part of the globalist empire.
Yeah.
It used to
See
be
that.
RTE had it, and that could be why they're doing things like that. Yeah, it's become all
They
sort
sold the souls. They sold their souls. Yeah.
of, yeah.
It's no longer Ireland.
It's no longer just RTE. Not that I like RTE, but it was no longer just shown on RTE. And now they've gone on to showing it on Sky, so it's become part of the globalist thing, you know.
Mm. But it's up to the fans. If we were allowed to go back in to Croke Park and see a game, say from next month
I wonder,
or after Christmas,
I wonder would there be any booing? Do you think if the fans got back and they started to?
that's what I'm saying. They need to turn around and say, "Hang on a second, I'm not here to see you take a knee. I'm
Yeah,
paying you to play a game.
yeah, yeah.
I paid a ticket to
I'm
play.
not
You see you play a game."
paying a ticket, buying. Well, it'd either be that or just boycott, you know.
True. And some fans would just like to have them on, but that's not acceptable. Fans shouldn't have to look at that. You're
Yeah.
going there to play. Politics and sport should be kept separate.
Yeah.
And this thing about BLM shouldn't be kept away from the field. It's not about politics. You're going there to enjoy a game, see people play a game. That's it.
Yeah.
Whoever wins, wins.
Right. Well, look, it's nearly 10 o'clock. Jacob Clug.
Is it?
Yes. So we could
goodness.
talk all night. Suzanne sent much short to you. We could talk away all night. But thank you very much, Karen. Guramila Moyogov. And thanks for
no problem.
Thank you for the
bits.
Fiber Bay. Thanks for the banter earlier, you know. Don't take it's not personal.
No.
And everybody that joined, thank you. Guramila Moyogov. And hopefully anybody that hasn't subscribed yet, please do. Just draw it at Irish Patriots. Anybody that's new in here. It's great to see a few new ones, new names there. And DT was in there as well. I'll try and get back to you about that camera DT. I'll send you a comment. Okay. Folks, all the best. We're going to sign off now. Karen, unless you have anything else you want to add, or you?
Well, I don't want to repeat myself, but I really think we need to be getting out on the streets and also talking to people on the street, go back to basics regarding public meetings and getting new leaflets out there and maybe plainly stating these are your rights. Stand up for your church, stand up for your rights, and maybe make it easier and accessible, because not everyone knows the Constitution. I mean, I have to say now, I wouldn't have been as clued in as much as I am this year and last year, because a lot of people would have, if you listen to different people like Ben Gilroy and, Gemma Doherty and so on, they are into the Constitution, they know their rights, and their right of freedom, the right of movement, right to work, all of that's been taken away from you. I don't care what anyone says, under the guise of COVID. And we need to turn that around and say, well, listen, hang on a second, we're going to educate the people. Educate them about nutrition. Educate them about their rights around religion and going to mass whenever they want. I mean, I don't like to see the churches closed. It's all those things.
There was one point maybe that I'll finish on as well. That thing on RT last week, with the Late Show, where they had that wee lad in with his mother.
Yeah.
I started thinking that was a wee bit manipulated. I thought that was playing on emotional blackmail. I nearly thought that mother was getting, I know it was her son and all, and you don't want to sound harsh, but it did look like she was getting very, very almost playing it up a wee bit, But it's all part of the agenda. The agenda is always the same one every week. The week before they had Jedward. But look, sure, we can talk about that maybe the next time. Karen, I shared that one with you anyway. But look, Guramai, Karen, August Galer.
Oh my God, good night.
Slán.
Talk to you again.
Slán.